Chris Landry on your radio, though, right now, 4 to 4:30, LandryFootball.com, at Landry Football on X. Chris, welcome in, sir. How are you?
Dick, doing good. How about you?
Good. I appreciate you moving around. I know Monday we had some playoff football. Yesterday we were, frozen solid here in the state of Mississippi, so back at it today. Let's start college, and, of course, we'll talk National Football League. I want to get your thoughts. We hadn't had a chance to really talk about it. Kalen DeBoer, Washington head football coach. He is now taking over for Nick Saban, and I've got several thoughts on this as far as the roster is concerned. But your initial thoughts when you saw DeBoer, and then now what he's doing, putting together his staff, pulling in a young coach from the Sun Belt out of South Alabama, and a young coach from Buffalo out of the MAC.
Well, I know he's a very good coach, and he's someone that is. That Greg Byrne was familiar with. Nick Saban last year had done a lot of research on particularly what Washington was doing on offense. He was trying to hire Ryan Grubb, their offensive coordinator, before he ended up hiring Tommy Rees. Ryan decided to stay at Washington, and ironically he's going to be there now and is part of the staff to replace him. But good young coach. Obviously, Kalen's been around a while. Right type of personality, I think. Time will tell. I've always said, everyone has always asked, well, who's going to replace him and how's it going to be? Look, it's a challenge. It's a challenge right now. Trying to keep that roster together is it's not going well. Everybody's coming after the players, and it'll be interesting to see. But he's a good coach. We'll see how well he does and how well it works out. You just don't know until the time comes.
Chris Landry on your radio, Wednesday edition of the program, LandryFootball.com and Landry Football on X. And, Chris, yesterday I was kind of combing through some transfer portal numbers. And, we've talked transfer portal, but we talk it at, Caleb Williams goes from Oklahoma to USC. Or, Florida State and Mike Norvell, they've done a great job in the transfer portal. But when you really look at what you're talking about, some deficiencies in the portal, this started last year, and this is unofficial numbers. I don't have it right in front of me, but Alabama last year, like 8 guys coming in, 23 going out. This year, 4 guys coming in, 21 going out. Chris, those numbers are big, big numbers. Even though Alabama finishes 1-2 every year in recruiting, I think we started to see some of that take effect this year. You look at the national semifinal game against Michigan. I don't know that they had anybody else to replace the center that was botching the snaps, or they would have played them. You look at Auburn really being able to be competitive in some other games. And you could say the same about Georgia. We don't know yet, but it looks like, these transfer portal numbers, when you're upside down like that, it's going to make a difference.
Well, it will, and I think the big thing that has had an impact on places like Alabama in recent years, we kind of touched on it last time, was the depth. It's the fact that, it's maybe not, the frontline guys that are playing weren't leaving. It's the guys that maybe weren't getting as much playing time. Well, those guys get poached, and they go somewhere else. Now, those are guys, in some cases, you've maybe put 1-2 years into developing, and then they're gone. And then you've got a gap behind those guys. So when you've got younger guys that are not quite ready to play, and then you always there are going to be certain guys that just don't pan out for whatever reason in your recruiting class, then, yeah, I think it has affected depth. I think the biggest thing, though, is what's different this year is the quality of guys. They're not losing backups now. They're losing starters. In fact, if you look at the starting, like the 22 type guys, just 21 of those guys off of last year's roster are gone, either through the portal or, going to the draft, graduating or applying to the draft. So they're losing not just depth, they're losing the quality starters. This is the other thing that happens when you have a coaching hire that happens at this point, where you've got a 30-day window for those guys that can transfer. Those, everybody's portal pickings are been picked clean. Now, like Alabama can go get guys, but, the guys that are there are not of the quality to replace the guys that they're losing, because they're not open for, they're not enough of those guys. The only guys that are available are the guys on their roster, and if they're not keeping them, it's having an effect. And, programs like Texas, Georgia, Florida State have really cleaned up on a number of quality players off Alabama's roster.
Excuse me. And yet, you bring up Florida State, and you look at what happened to Florida State, obviously, and we've gone back and forth, and this will, I guess, always kind of be a debate. Should Florida State have been in over Alabama? I think the committee probably got it right. But you look at Mike Norvell gets signed to an extension regardless of what happens with the NCAA, a 10-year deal. They have put in more work. We saw what the transfer portal did for them last year, this past season, with some of the big play explosive receivers. Now you look with a quarterback in DJ Uiagalelei from Oregon State, formerly of Clemson, and what they're doing in the portal. You look at what Texas is doing in the portal, Oregon's doing in the portal, Ole Miss is doing in the portal, where, that's the other side of it. You've got programs with coaches that are extremely aggressive with it.
There's no question. I think it is. And the portal, we can't talk about the portal and why are they doing well? Well, it also corresponds with the collective and what you're willing to do. A&M is putting a lot of money into collective. Texas, and you mentioned a couple. Miami, has done. So, yeah, it's teams like that are being very aggressive because, if you have the resources to do it, if you can't get the elite players in recruiting, and you get guys that have been developed pretty well, bringing them in is another way to go ahead and not just fill gaps, but maybe help you. Look, if you lose guys or you make mistakes in recruiting, then you have gaps in your class. And so you got to fill in that, that 25 each year. You lose 8 or 9 guys out of that year, out of the 25. Well, you got to replace that, or else you're going to have a year where you are just really bad. So you've got to fill in, 6, 7, 8 guys, maybe in each class, if you lose that many. So I still don't think that's the way to build a program, but it is a way to supplement. Georgia doesn't do a whole lot of it, but they get some key guys. They don't lose many guys. So if you don't lose a lot of guys and you recruit well and you develop well and you don't lose them, then you only have to add a few guys here or there. But the ones that are trying to build a program and maybe have lost certain guys or for whatever reason are not able to get elite recruiting classes, they are doing it. You mentioned Ole Miss is doing that. Florida State's doing that, just two to mention. Texas has done a tremendous job in recruiting, so they're just supplementing. A&M got a new coach coming in. Look at LSU. We talked about Brian Kelly at LSU for the first 2 years. Heavy in the portal, doesn't want to really do that because she's trying to build through recruiting, but the roster left picked clean by when Ed Orgeron left, it necessitates that. So I think this is going to be kind of a regular cycle, particularly if you lose a coach. You lose a coach, in this case, which we're talking about with Alabama, it's more about, let's go and the folks are literally circling now because they know there's a lot of good players and they know there's uncertainty, and they're getting a lot of those guys to say, come here, because let's call it what it is. Those guys, in large part, most kids, they go to a school because of the head coach, and now they're going for what the head coach and what the staff and what the NIL and collective can do for them. And if they can get better opportunities, they're gone. And in this case, they're looking at opportunities where they've got maybe more opportunity and more money, and that's why they're losing a lot of guys. So it is an interesting time, no question about it.
Chris, before we take our first time out, I want to ask you about Caleb Williams. From the NFL scouting side of things, we see, and we saw this somewhat with Eli Manning and some other guys as well, but Caleb Williams last year, his father came out and said, Carl Williams said, hey, look, we're not going to go play for Arizona. Then we're not going to go play for Chicago here recently. And we want a percentage of an ownership, blah, 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 down the road. A lot of demands, and you look at it as, Joe Public says, wow, that's pretty brazen. But now, obviously, he commits. He says, hey, I'm going to the NFL. I'm going to go play for whoever. How does those types of messaging resonate with front office people in the National Football League?
Not very good. And I think it's just a matter of not just that, but if you look at the history with Caleb Williams, it's a lot of me, it's a lot of I, and I think it's buyer beware. As talented as he is, he may very well go number one. I've seen a lot of guys that are of that ilk that never quite achieve up to their physical capabilities because of the fact that there's a lot of, me. Now, look, I know the Manning family very well, and I wasn't all that impressed with how they handled it. But, that wasn't really who Eli was, meaning once he got to campus, he was going to work hard. He was going to do the things the right way. When he got into the NFL, for that is what I meant to say. So, even though Archie knew that the Spanos family wasn't the best place for him, or at least in his mind, he had the chops to be able to maybe work things, and he went to, in his eyes, a better place. But it wasn't, you didn't have any problems with Eli. In fact, it was just the opposite once he went with the Giants. He was the ultimate team guy. I worry about this guy. I worry about a number of these guys that are just me, I. I've seen a lot of them over the years. Johnny Manziel, Kyler Murray, Jamarcus Russell, Matt Leinart. I mean, you can go on and on and on of guys that were taken very, very high that were not really good team guys or, hard workers. And I just wonder if this guy might be another one. We'll see. I don't want to jump to that yet, but it does send up a red flag.